which stands one nation under God, indivisible.
Sorry, they're here today.
I didn't see you when I came in the office. Colleagues. Did colleagues step around the corner or? Or our clerk?
What was that?
Are you gonna be taking minutes and stuff? Allison's not here. Is somebody gonna be taking it from the office there?
I
Oh.
wasn't aware of that, but I can,
We're checking right now, I guess,
She was in here earlier.
oh, here we are. Okay, very good,
okay.
very good. We've done the pledge of allegiance, approval of the agenda. The 3 action items and 4 on the consent. Move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. There being none, all in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Next is previous minutes. Just wanted to clarify something on the minutes here on page 138 and 39. The motion made last week by Greg is to investigate the process,
I've heard.
the total process, including the committee
Investigate the
processes.
conflict of
Conduct
interest.
an investigation of the process. So I just want to clarify that includes Parks Committee and everybody, because it's part of the process.
I would think so.
It's an investigation of the complaint.
The process. Yep. As long as the process includes everybody. Very good, as long as we know that. Clarification that the process is being investigated, not just individual. Thank you. Moving on, I'll get a motion.
Well, it'd be everybody, all the individuals involved in the process.
That's all the process.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what it was. That's just the question.
The only addition I had on the minutes, 200 file number 3, page 139, when we talked about the wake zone. It just states Bullhead Bay south of Wildcat, and we also talked quite a bit about harbor lights and also the Lawrence Lake boathouses and whatnot. So it's not strictly the Bullhead Bay area.
The
Should I add
volume
that
down
in?
there is-
You want to add that in?
I would, that way, that way there was
Give more
discussion of
context.
this. Right, more context.
What was the other thing other than Lawrence Lake? Can you repeat that?
Harbor lights, the Harbor Lights edition,
Light?
which is the houses in the old Sandbar area, Sandbar Marina, I think it used to be.
Yeah, I did try to call you because I'm not familiar with all those areas, but yeah, I'll add that in.
There's the houses and docks right on the beach. That was part of the processing of my discussion.
Got it.
Thank you.
So the only thing to change is to add in Lawrence Lake and Harbor Lights
Please,
addition.
thank you.
Okay. With those clarifications, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion with those clarifications.
There a second?
I'll second the motion with the clarifications and additions.
Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Public comment. At this point, we have open for public comment. Doesn't appear to be anybody in the building. And in the screen, there's none. We have no appointments. Moving on to the consent agenda, we have 4 items there. Changing his employment status of James Sweet. Change employment status of Andrea Einert. Accept the Towards Zero Deaths grant. And approve Serenity Services for guardianship and conservatorship. So, any questions? We have some folks here. Any questions of John or Tess? Feeling of the board.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Further discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Moving on to action items, we have three. The first one is consider a CUP for Joseph Gardner to have a dwelling in Ag District in Hoka Township. Marty.
Morning. Have a conditional use permit for Joseph Gardner. It's a case of, it's quite a story. It was a house that had burned and numerous people had tried to redo it. Apparently it was full of snakes, is what we learned the other week. So it was, but what he did is he gave up on the house and then he remodeled the garage instead. And then we ended up with it. The garage did need a variance. Amelia did check that distance you were concerned about, that it is 10 feet, and that was the case. So in terms of that, so a variance has been issued for this garage, but the garage became the dwelling. He remodeled it into a 900 square foot house. And so as a result of that, with the old house being destroyed, he gave up his rights that he would have had prior being a lot of record and that type of activity. So then now he falls back into being a conditional use permit for a dwelling for that area. So that's what this is about.
Question to the board. If Pat went through the planning commission, then this is the recommendation.
It went through the Board of Adjustment for a variance. Oh, yeah, yes, it did. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say,
It went through both.
Both?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
this is the property that's right along 26 by Brooklyn.
That was we checked the distance.
Yeah. oh, I seen where they remodeled.
Yeah.
Said that house was haunted at one time. I'll make a motion to approve the CUP for Joseph Gardner.
Motion made, is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion.
Just one question. This was something that was set up years ago before there was the one quarter and whatnot. There's quite a few houses along that stretch. That one per quarter doesn't come into play on this because of what it's set up.
You're wondering if it's the only one in that 40, basically.
Right.
Yeah, I'll have to.
But there are a number of houses down along the river fairly close together that were put up prior to
Zoning.
the zoning that's in place now. Is this one of those properties that's prior to zoning?
I would almost think so.
I would think so. It's an old house.
It's-
That's what Amelia's got written here, yes.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
Then see, we had to get back in the components, live there. So then you got to get. Right. Yeah, everything to be back.
Okay. Further discussion. There being none, all in favor say aye. Those against say nay. Carried. Number two is consider approving an MFIP biennial service agreement for the 22-23. This is the required agreement to administer the Minnesota Family Investment Program. Biennial, one I understand.
Yes, it is.
Morning, Commissioners.
Right.
This is a routine act that we do every 2 years for biennial service agreement, as Dewey has mentioned, for our Minnesota Family Investment or MFIP program. I'm going to have Karen kind of go through a couple of the specifics of it, and then if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Okay, so MFIP and DWP are the family cash programs that we administer. They are mandated services. Part of the process is anybody that's on MFIP or DWP needs to work with employment and training, which our providers, WDI, Workforce Development. So this agreement is federal and state funding that allows us, and that's how we pay for WDI. So the services are mandatory for clients to participate. We also have to have an agency for clients to go to for these services. So this is a 2-year plan, and it talks, there's funding for the DWP program, MFIP, and any of our emergency assistance comes out of this funding as well.
No big changes in this from prior years. Fairly routine, but since it's not something that comes to you every year, I thought I'd bring it to you if you had any questions.
Yeah, and the allocation for 2024 is $153,436.
Okay.
Good program,
I'm sorry, say again.
pretty good program.
It's a good program. One of the things I like to point out about cash programs. When it comes to public assistance, I think Karen's office and our work with public assistance is often characterized as cash. It's really a pretty comparatively small program. By far, our largest program is healthcare programs. This is also a time limited program, so it isn't that once you get on it, you're on it forever. The state allows 60 months in a lifetime. Once those 60 months are up, you are no longer eligible unless there's certain, I don't know, variances due to, I don't know, a variety of different things, but for the most part, you've got 60 months. The partnership we have with WGI is good, and it's a long-standing partnership. They provide employment and training services, this mandated employment and training services across the region in every county in southeast Minnesota except for Winona. So it's this MFIP program goes back to welfare reform that is way back into the late 90s during the Clinton administration. And its federal source is TANF, Temporary Aid to Needy Families. We aren't happy unless we have an acronym. So does that answer?
So in the breakout of your 153,000, what's under 200% service?
So people that we've built in retention services for people. So if somebody's based off of and that they're working, they're self-sustaining, so they're no longer on the cash program. If something happens in the next 12 months, we're able to put some services in. Sometimes they just need help with replacing a tire on their vehicle. So to have some funding set aside to be able to help them with retention services, keeps them working, keeps them moving forward, but just as a little safety net.
And 200% is, in order to be eligible to use TANF dollars, you have to be under 200% of federal poverty guideline. So if it says 200% FPG, that's what that means.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Feeling of the board?
I'll move to approve. This is semi.
Every 2 years.
It'll be annual. Yes.
Okay, the motion made,
I'll second that.
further discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Carried. Next is consider a committee to study cannabis licensing and regulation related to recently passed legalization of adult use cannabis. John and Sam.
Commissioner Severson, I'm going to bring that agreement to you for signature.
Oh, that one right
It's
away.
an electronic signature. And this will help us.
Yeah.
I would have hit that. Thank you. I would have heard.
Well, really give Andy a good reason to replace it, baby.
Yeah, yeah. Has anybody else hit it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Really? Sorry. Then I definitely would have. All right, for this, at the last board meeting, you asked me to bring a proposal for a cannabis study group to you. I've since met with Sam and with Marty, and we have kind of an initial proposal to establish a cannabis committee, probably with the three of us on it. I think I'd also include Jordan from our public health office. We talked about Brian Swedberg as sheriff and the potential of having it be adjacent to a county work session so that we could have a conversation about where you want to go with it, what else you think should be on it. For purposes of clarification, I'm thinking that our focus of this study group would be in positioning the county as it relates to licensing of adult use cannabis dispensaries that is yet to occur. Those will be licensed through the state of Minnesota. What I mentioned to our Community Services Committee this morning is legislation passes and it gives us a sense of what it's gonna be, but then it goes through a state agency or the rule makers, and that gives us the specificity. That's what we lack right now. And as those things become more clear, I would envision this committee helping to make recommendation to position the board to be ahead of this before there are licenses available. I don't know, do you guys want to add anything?
Well, one of the things I would say is I kind of see it, what John has said, but I also think it's a good forum for education as well. In that I would anticipate maybe at the next meeting, we could talk about other partners that we could have involved in this. Perhaps at least people would invite principals for superintendents, the city law enforcement agencies, perhaps the city attorneys. If we have it during a work session, we'd have the ability to use if we had it here, we'd have the ability to use our communication devices. If we potentially could have a speaker come in from the Attorney General's office about where things are at, or AMC regarding with the adult use cannabis, where that's at. Because oftentimes we do hear, or I'll get questions, or you'll get questions about this or that, and then maybe I provide that information to you directly, the individual commissioner directly. But this is a way not only to have that information for all the commissioners at once, but the community as a whole. But I also think, as John indicated, there's a lot of learning going on here. I think, if not all, most of you were at the township officers meeting where I indicated, hey, this is a statute that is very vague. It's very, I don't know if it's so much confusing as just a lot of unknowns in it. And I thought succinctly, Representative David said he apologized for the statute. Is that how vague it is? And so I think there's one way to this is one way, I think, to address a lot of issues at once as a group, so we all can have input and have questions. And the other thing is too, is, as I didn't mention it, but if we have it either it's being proposed, we could have the community involved as well. I think this is something that we want to be able to have as much as the community wants to participate or not involved in this matter as well. I think it's good to have the cities involved because the one thing it seems to be clear in that statute that was passed would be, as far as our local control, is the zoning. And so, just off the top of my head, there's distances in that statute from different daycares, schools, parks. Maybe just kind of spitballing here. One of the things we could do is maybe we could try to find out where all those places are in the communities and what are their distances from this or that. So if we get to that point where we're going to have to license something, where are these areas that, and for the distances that would be set. So we don't always know those, but that'd be a good thing, just for example. The other thing would be, this would be able to provide us some input from the communities as a whole regarding how many of these do we want? We know we have to have 12 per 12,500. We have to have one. We could explore perhaps, do we want more than one? Do we, what are the communities saying about this? What's the public saying about this? What maybe we could have some input from AMC or other people that are struggling with that question. So I think it has, because the known is that we're going to start seeing through AMC model ordinances. They were tasked in the statute to get these model ordinances. I think it'd be good information. Be good to have information regarding how we need to take a look at these model ordinances and craft them to fit our communities, because we are in a lot of ways similar to all the other 87 counties, but as we know, we're also different. So that's my thoughts on it, but I just think it's a good place to start, to get everybody together and start talking about this and what direction this should or should not change. I think ultimately for the decision-making body like itself, it provides you a lot of information and people that are readily accessible for you to talk to.
Well, I think working with the city is a good idea, so we're not having a power struggle over who's gonna have power. It's that way we can all work together.
But I think too, Commissioner, I think I would look at it is that, you know, oftentimes, whether it's a county or a city, county to a state, city, is that they may have come up with an idea that we haven't even thought of. Or they may have specific uniqueness to their situation that would be good to hear what the reasoning for. And so I think there's a lot of reasons to have the cities involved.
So. Based on the listing that you're talking about here between cities, law enforcement. Attorneys, and you're looking at a really big,
I think
really big group that's gonna. I just look at the functionality of a group that big.
well, and I think what it is it's like if you're gonna have a party, you know, you assume 20% will come. And then I don't know if they all will come on a regular basis. And that's why I'd rather have that problem, have too much participation. I think that's a good problem to have, is too much participation. That's something that I think it's something we could figure out. But it's the opposite that I think is the dangerous. We don't have any participation or very little participation, or we limit it.
I share Bob's concerns. Is too big a group, how you're gonna craft a model ordinance or whatever, but and I get the idea of getting a lot of ideas, but you get more done if you have a smaller group. Because in the end, we're gonna have a public hearing to adopt anything anyway, right? And we'll get our community input from that, I'm sure.
And I agree. And I guess my thought would be is at this point, we're talking 4 or 5 agencies, see who wants to participate. But again, I'm thinking when I'm anticipating, we talked with John and with Marty, is that once a month is what we were thinking. And
Or as needed.
yes.
And some things may come up that we want to, you know, do some study on before we bring recommendation to you guys to make a decision.
But I anticipate, I guess, where at some point we're going to have to make a decision. The board there's going to be some model ordinances. If we can take a look at, you get information about how we can make those model ordinances meld, if you will, to our unique circumstances here in the county. I think better information is more than less.
I think one idea too is that in terms of the paring down, you will have that with the planning commission when you get to the point where their official controls and their involvement on the zoning part, you know, because that will exist too. So.
Well, if we we can cure a lot of this discussion by having one discussion on 1 through 12.5. Couldn't we?
I think that's a big part of the discussion.
Yep.
And kind of deciding how you want to position yourself on that. And getting information to be able to decide what are the pros and cons of whatever position you choose. And so I think that's a big part of it, but I think there's going to be other things as it relates to, you know, county control versus city control.
Yeah.
And some of those kinds of things. I think some of the zoning types of
There's some-
requirements,
Yeah,
a lot of that, we get asked a lot of different questions and we don't really have good answers. Like we're talking a lot about the dispensaries or the retail sales. But, you know, as soon as we start talking about that, then we talk about production and farming and we talk about extracts and things like that for hemp derived things and a lot of that, there just isn't a good answer yet. There's speculation, but so I think there's going to be more that is going to come up that we're going to want to look into carefully before the board takes a position.
And we're talking about the upcoming marijuana change, not the current CBDs. Are we looking at CBDs as well, even though it's after the fact?
Well, and I will tell you, I think we can take our direction from the Office of Cannabis Management. My understanding is use your language, the CBD stuff. They have their own set of laws and rules right now. That is grandfathered in until 2025. Then the Office of Cannabis Management is going to control both
We
of those.
oversee that.
One thing I'd note is, and just for your services, CBD, when you talk about CBD, you bring in a host of, like there's a CBD shop here in Caledonia. That's been legal for a long time. It's using things like hand lotions or things that you rub on a sore joint or whatever, that there's medicinal purposes in CBD, which is part of the plant, but it doesn't have this psychoactive part, which is THC. So the 2022 legislation was about THC edibles. I say that because I think when we lump CBD into it, that's what fills your boardroom with people saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's been something that we've been able to do for a long time, and it's very helpful for a good number of people. And you've had these CBD shops that are all over the place, and they are selling things that are not something that would make you high. So to your question, I just reframe it and say the THC edible industry. And to that, I'd agree with what Sam said. That's something that passed in 2022. And it is, as I understand it, under the statute, that will come under the umbrella of the Cannabis Control Office.
So those businesses will have to get a state license too.
Yeah, if you've got a CBD
Right now,
store,
they got a city license.
not to sell cannabis. They may have,
Not
Oh.
to sell recreational cannabis,
Right.
but they got a city permit for it.
Psychoactive.
Yep.
THC.
they may or may not.
It
They-
may-
City license, I should say.
They don't even need that under the 2020
Well, I guess they don't,
legislation.
do they?
So some cities have said that they want to have some licensing or zoning, but there isn't anything in that 2022 legislation that requires licensing.
Yep, you're right.
So when 2025 comes around and they regroup everybody into one of these big packages, is this CBD shop in California gonna sell marijuana?
I guess they'd have to make a business decision as to whether they want to include
But
that in what
though,
they're
then we
doing.
were looking at 12.5. What if Dairy Queen has their license and this guy all of a sudden in 25 he starts
Well,
selling
see,
marijuana, then
There's where
What
we
happened
have
there
to
is-
make a decision
Right.
sooner rather than later.
Right.
How many do we want? And so.
Which is, again, that's kind of circle back to where we started,
study
that
committee.
I want to
Yep.
get as much information as you can about that. So because when you make those decisions or not, you'll hear me constantly say you need to make findings, which are reasoning behind it, because you're acting in a legislative capacity. As long as there's a rational reason, rational basis for your decision, and that's how you get that foundation from that, is from getting that information, getting educated.
I think that's what Fillmore is kind of worried about, is they got a lot of CBD shops, and if they can transfer right into selling marijuana when that happens. They got a lot of shops. Well. I mean, this is gonna be a big wide open can of worms, I think.
There definitely needs to be a line between one and the other. Between the THC and the CBD stuff.
Well,
So
It's not gonna be a line. It's all gonna be incorporated under one
one big.
office of cannabis bureaucracy in the state of Minnesota.
Another question that just popped into my head is, and I don't know the answer to it. Again, pointing to why a study committee is, there are multiple places that are currently selling THC edibles. Everything from convenience stores to CBD shops to now liquor stores. Under the current legislation, it's opened up some of that. So if they want to continue selling THC, but they're not interested in an adult use cannabis license, does that come under the 12.5 regulation? They're all going to be under the State Office of Cannabis Control. But I
I was
don't know.
thinking the same thing at
I
the
don't know.
same time, probably.
Yeah, and so, you know, as you guys are talking, it's like, there's yet another thing where, okay, and people will ask that, and people are making business decisions as to, you know, growing a business or establishing a business. And there are citizens who now have a legal right to this that also have questions. I just think those are the kind of things that, to Sam's point, you get that information, you come up with your findings, and that's the basis of the ordinances that come to you.
So you just want to do this during a workshop, or do you want to have like 2 commissioners on it, or?
I just think it's for information for all of you to make your group decisions. I just thought once a month at a work session, that way they're noticed. And then we got the technology here, we could have be inclusive if possible. We can always pare this down or go less if we want to, but just see who wants to participate to start with.
Might not have too many participants, you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that's a good problem to have.
Well, I think we need to get going, so.
Was it too late to set up for next Tuesday, or should we do it the Tuesday or the workshop in November?
I don't think we can make the paper
What's the notice for?
10 days.
For the workshop, there's,
I was gonna say it's a workshop, it's not.
You don't need to have.
No.
We're not having any special.
No, I just think you would put it on the, like, you put it on the website,
Agenda, yeah.
on the website.
But so who, is it John gonna be, or you, Sam, that's gonna be contacting the city officials and the law enforcement? And
What I would anticipate is perhaps like setting, after this meeting, say you want to do it next Tuesday, is work with John to get the comments, the contacts, emails, to people that I think are important, John, Barton. We could get it all together, but I really do see, I suppose you could really actually maybe do it next week if your schedules would allow it, because that's more of just kind of making sure who, you know,
Setting
making
it
sure who
up.
we should have, setting it up, more of an organizational type meeting. So that may be shorter.
And at some point you want a public contact too.
We can kind of talk about all those type of things. But I would anticipate you'd have your, at your work session, maybe set a time, whatever you want to do it, when you start or at the end. I would anticipate maybe we would have these meetings for, I don't know. Guess we'll figure it out, schedule it for an hour, maybe it's a half hour is what we need.
well, we could set it up for 9:15 next Tuesday, as that way there, anybody who's gonna do teleconference type of thing, so we can get things started, and I think it's preliminary right now to set up a plan.
Yep.
Set up the committee and kind of have a goal.
Sure.
And then work into that.
Okay.
That acceptable to the group? We need to have a motion on consider establishing the committee too.
I guess the only request I would like you to have is have the president or the chairman of the planning commission be involved in this.
Oh, sure, that's a really good idea.
Great idea, because that's, all of this is gonna end up coming
And then
through.
coming back.
Yeah, it's
through
the
the
official
planning
control.
commission.
So,
He needs to have a heads up on it.
Right.
and we have been talking with them so far, so.
So you need an action, or you need a consensus to form a study committee?
I don't know if we need it.
It's
but
in
I don't
the
know if we
action
need-
thing,
I think you need just a directive.
consensus.
A directive consensus, we don't need a.
Maybe when you have a
Consensus then?
slate.
We're not establishing a committee, we're gonna have work group basis, so there won't be committees established at the present times.
So consensus next Tuesday at 9:15 to preliminary start the process.
Sure.
Process going.
And we'll reach out to the,
You think it's gonna be a good?
I'll talk to
We
them.
get as many people as we're talking about here. Everybody wants to speak. We're always playing.
Back along.
Well, I think we should start out with law enforcement. You know. Cities and planning commission and stuff.
Maybe get the mayor. to
We can
come.
bring we can bring the community in later. you know.
Well, I'm just thinking if we make it an option if somebody wants to attend, but I'm just thinking like, I agree with you.
Right, if
Got
they
the-
want, they can still be.
The chiefs of police of the, and I think that makes sense.
I don't envision us sending an invitation to 50 people. I think some key folks to be part of the initial discussion as you're setting this up. And part of that discussion often when you're setting things up is who's missing. And then we have it grow into that, or however you choose to go once you set it up.
Most people you're talking about notification. Could still go on the online agenda, but
Absolutely.
anybody in the public that reads it can come to it. I mean, this is a
It's an open
public
meeting.
forums.
That makes sense.
So are you gonna allow public comment at the work group session? Typically, that isn't on there.
No,
You can come and listen.
That's what it'll take you to do. And there'll be a time for that as well.
Well, we're not setting no rules, so I mean, we're just establishing a committee and.
Not even a committee. It's
No.
just a work group session. At the present.
Hey, I guess. We'll get things started.
Have you read the Fillmore County ordinance?
Not
This Fillmore County. Journal,
I did read the
3 pages. Long read.
I've seen a lot of the drafts of it. I haven't seen the more recent, and I know that they made revisions to it at a recent meeting. So I read the Fillmore County Journal's news article on it, but I didn't read the legals. All right, thank you.
They started that one first.
Okay, that takes care of the action items, discussion. I'll go get some things done. I attended the city La Crescent meeting last night. They're looking at speed reductions and throughout the community. From 30 to 25 in their city streets, things that are under their jurisdiction. Discussion between them and John at, Brian at Highway Department, because cannot change county roads. So that's a discussion going on still. They're talking about maybe a 5-mile reduction in the school area on Elm, but again, that's in the preliminary stages. I'd be aware of that. They're looking into an engineering study to next some lots off of Crescent Hills. There's vivid discussion between the township and city at this point. I kind of have mixed emotions on that one, being I used to be township, but that's just in the preliminary. And then there's a construction on Elm or on Fifth Street, but that's going to affect all of us here. Thursday morning, I'll be going to a Southeast Minnesota EMS meeting. Talk about the things that are happening there, prepare for December's budget deal. This morning, Bob and I attended the community services deal meeting, and Rob voiced concern about being able to take care of his people in a timely manner with short of help, and preliminary budget did not change a couple of people that he feels he needs. So we had some discussion on that. Again, we emphasize preliminary. November 4th is the Veterans Bonanza over at La Crosse Center, trying to help with the veterans. And then John talked about the biennial service agreement we voted on, the study committee towards zero deaths. We voted on that. There's some COVID grant monies to be used by the end of June next year. We're trying to determine good usage of it. Bob can probably fill us in more on that. And then again, the question of purchases, vehicle purchases, are we going to shy away or not? As Enterprise indicated, there is a vehicle finally showing up. So again, that'd be some more discussion amongst this board when they get some action item on this. And Bob maybe hit a high note on something else. That's what I have. Eric?
Last Monday, I attended a Zoom meeting for the State Extension Committee. And that meeting was basically to start reviewing the MOA process for our contract with Extension. They're looking at creating a subcommittee to work on those. They'll start having meetings in November. 3 to 4 meetings to work through that. They just kind of gave us an overview of what's things that are gonna look like to come. I'm afraid they're gonna be the contract will be going up because they're looking at wages and studies to try to retain people, so I assume that means there's gonna be take more money. Don't know that for sure, but so and it was just an hour and a half meeting. Missed the extension meeting. Greg went to that, so he'll give you a report on it. That's all I got.
Robert?
All right. The Botcher Park Trail Improvement Project by the Boy Scout from Crescent is done. It came out really nice. Trail expansion that they did, roughly 7 feet wide, and they put chips along that 1,000 feet or more. It's really nice trail. I walked it. I kind of want to make sure they're doing what we wanted, and then I walked it after they were done. It's a nice addition to the park. The trouble with it is the rest of the trails have been in there a while, and the materials they use for that has roughly turned to dirt. So that those trails, it's a little bit hard to determine where the trail is in a few spots because of the fact that it's turned to dirt and gaps between the trees. So the new trail is really nice, well defined. You can follow it right to the next where it ties into the existing trail, but the existing trails could use some more. Scouts from the Crescent asked if there's any other projects. They have 5 or 6 scouts that are looking for Eagle Scout projects. That would there be anything else that the county would have that would qualify for the Eagle Scout project? I don't know about the project, park project, as far as existing field. If there's anything at the fairgrounds that needs to be done that would make a good Eagle Scout project. But that was a question from them. And then I got the answer on the, I asked Brian about the DNR canoe landing zone down at the off the river. And told me that the DNR is going to be doing something next year. Or expanding and making a nice gradual. So that answered that question. With regard to what Dewey brought up, one of the things that John mentioned was the COVID grant money that they've got. Amounts to in excess of $300,000. Has to be spent by June the 24th.
Who got this?
Human Services. And
This is ARPA money,
no,
COVID grant money
COVID grant money
from the state.
from the state. And they don't have a purpose for it yet. Houston County was very upfront as far as the COVID inoculations and whatnot that really got out ahead of the game. Fillmore County is still in the process of finish up those kind of projects and whatnot. The money that, according to John, you can use it for equipment or supplies or renovation. You can't use it for acquiring property. You can't use it for wages. It's renovations and whatnot. So we could, as an example, the Meyer building fits underneath that umbrella. If we wanted to make soundproof improvements to the Meyer building, if we wanted to to take and make some extra office space out there, say shrink down the your
Extension.
extension offices and
Shrink down.
shrink it down and make some additional. That's a whole big office, open area that they've got with the conference room and whatnot. They don't need 2 conference rooms in that building. To shrink down and add some office space. It's just the only place that they can spend the 300. If you don't use it, you lose it. So maybe it's lost. But it would be something to think about. Then
Could we use it for HVAC?
that'd be an improvement to the building.
It needs it.
So there's, okay, that's something that was not brought up, but it's a renovation and that would be an improvement that would be a good thing. So there you have. it.
Well, I would suggest talking, including Tess in the conversation.
As our department manager, yeah, yep. Yes, and John, talk to them. It's a good idea, thank you. Then something else, in talking with, Rob talked about the VSO. And a little frustrated as far as not going from 3/4 to 1 full-time employee. He gave us some information with regard to what his office is doing and all the different things that are going on and the changes that have been made. When he started 6-7 years ago, he was handling 400 Betsy. He's up to 11. And it's a burnout situation because he's swamped. He needs the extra help. So although we don't have the staff going from 3/4 to 1, he could really use it. He understands the budget, he understands all the issues as far as that's concerned. But he's also got a burnout situation as far as everything he's having to deal with and the additional things that are coming down from the Fed. The Fed may or may not provide additional funding. I wouldn't count on it the way the Fed is right now. I wouldn't count on it. But it's a thought. We've got the 100,000 that Carol's received. So we could augment the budget for the 14,000 that this is going to cost. So it doesn't hurt our 7%. Trying to get down to 6%, but it's food for thought. We don't have to decide.
Well, we had a personnel committee on that a while back.
Yeah.
Discussed it.
But you guys are aware of it, so. We just didn't include it in the budget as far as the cuts and whatnot, but might be something that we need to refigure.
Well, there might be a lot of veterans that are missing out on some services too, being so swamped.
Possibility. Well, he's
I've had
trying to
calls-
keep up to everything.
Yeah, I've had some calls from veterans that, he's jammed, can't get there.
So it's something we should seriously consider.
That's something we should pretty soon. Go on, move it.
It affects the timeliness to take care of the vets' requests and needs. They've done enough already.
Well, it's at the same personnel meeting, we talked about extensions needs as well as what Rob would do.
Yeah, we got 2 areas there that we need to look at, extension and veteran.
But that's gonna add to the budget.
Right. I would be, personal opinion, a much stronger opinion as far as adding the veteran service office than I do to extension. That's just. But second thing the next thing I want to bring up is lease versus purchase on vehicles. We've got, John got notification that there is a vehicle available coming our way in a couple, 2-3 weeks. They've got 1 lease vehicle right now and the rest are owned. Do we want to extend and add to the lease vehicles, or do we want to start looking at getting back to owning our own vehicle? The buyout of the leases is expensive, so the one that he's got has got 2 years left on it, so I'm of the opinion that maybe we leave it that way. I know we're not making a decision for this thought. So we continue with the leases that we have. But we've got roughly $250,000 still in the ARPA fund, which is not dedicated to anything at the present time, right, Carol? rough numbers. Highway department's got 3 pickups that they're selling that we own. If we bought a couple of used vehicles with less than 30,000 miles out for Health and Human Services, and it costs $50,000 for those. And then we bought 3 pickups. They got 3 pickups on the line that they're selling that the county owns. Take that money plus the money that we've got in ARPA and use it to buy 3 county pickups. Just to start to wean ourselves off the leases. And then work our way around to the other lease vehicles. Leaving the budget alone, the money that we've got set aside for the lease payments, but dedicating that to a fund for vehicle purchase. It's, and like I say, this is food for thought, something to think about. To get together with Carol, get together with John and with Brian, as far as the vehicles and the other leases that we've got. But if we're not happy with leasing, I know the sheriff's department's all leased. That would be a really expensive switch on that part. And it would be, to get ourselves out.
It'll take time to go get them off the system. If we do a little bit at a time, it won't hit the budget as hard as.
We'll have to get it into a rotation.
So is highway getting rid of these 3 pickups? Got 3 new leases coming in or what?
I don't see Brian on. He was here earlier, now he's not on here. I'm assuming that they had 3 leases coming in to replace the pickups. But do you know, Carol, that they have?
They're actually just on the rotation to get rid of.
Okay,
So either we would lease pickups or we would buy pickups.
So they're selling 3.
Basically, 3 that we own.
So how many miles do we put on these vehicles a year?
I mean, what's wrong with these pickups? Is there something wrong with them that they gotta sell them?
Well, I'd actually probably ask that we set aside some time at the next work group session or possibly, so we can have everyone here. Because it doesn't just affect human services. We've got the fleet vehicle, we've got, you know, solid waste for zoning head, solid waste as a truck. You know, it's not just those people, so I think we should have everybody in the game while we're talking about it, so.
That's a good idea.
I think next weekend, work group session is probably going to be a little busy, so maybe we could set aside some discussion time with possible action at the next board meeting. Because Enterprise is also wondering what's.
Yeah, do what's, we gotta give a 30-day notice or what do we gotta do there?
I don't know.
All right.
like I said, this is food for thought.
Yeah, I know, I
We're not
understand.
making
that.
a
This is
decision.
information.
We gotta think about it.
I mean, we definitely want to have a decision made prior to setting our final budget and final levy.
Right.
Okay.
But we do have some time, so we should see what we want to do. Only other thing I got is I got a CJCC meeting coming up Wednesday with regard to the various goings on in the courthouse. The jail will be part of that conversation too. All I got.
Next Thursday,
October 11th.
that's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow. Wednesday tomorrow.
Okay,
I had land use this morning with Eric. We had a little bit smaller group. Brian touched a little bit on the airport that the work's begun for the progress out there. Sounds like they're installing some weather cameras that they can log into see what's going on live view. And they're anticipating pavement next week, so it'll be, he said, affecting a little bit around the courthouse with the city streets, and the same crew is going out to do the pavement at the airport. So that's coming to a wrap the way it sounds. And then we had just a little bit of tidbit information that Eldon, you might be looking at a resolution for an extension of Warrior Avenue out to the highway and help alleviate some of the traffic out that way.
Applying for an LRP fund. the grant for that.
Right. The only other thing that kind of was a little bit more of a topic of information was, they're still working a little bit or getting requests from the DNR to look at some form of a resolution to help them with their regulation of boathouses, but they didn't have a lot of information from Nicole at this time. So some of that, Nicole Lehman through the DNR. Must have some.
She wants some feedback from the counties. I don't know, they're looking for support.
I'm not sure what they're looking for, but basically when,
Cause they do the permitting, so like, Army, they have, okay, you can explain it better, Bob.
the Army Corps and Fish and Wildlife hold the permits down there. And a lot of the boathouse owners that are rebuilding their boathouses have to go through a permit process. And then they can increase their footprint. And there's some gray areas on height and some other things that they want to have county input or a county control on a little bit. And
Well, there,
a little bit of gray area on what exactly she
and
wants.
Amelia was working on resolutions in this, it kind of mirrors what one of the counties was. And she was working on that because we as a county didn't want nothing to do with the permitting process of boathouses. Cause that's an Army Corps DNR thing, so. That's what they were gonna, that's what Amelia was working on. Well, then when Nicole got wind of this resolutions that the counties were doing, that she had some reservations about that too. It wasn't what they're looking for. She went and talked to her superiors, and now they don't know what to.
They don't really know what they want.
Yeah, they don't really know what they want for sure, so. She's claiming what's been going on isn't lining up with statute in her opinion, so that's why she's probably going to her superior style. So, bottom line is, though, is as a county, we didn't want to, I don't think we need to get in the middle of that process with the permitting and stuff like that, because it's not taxed, it's not, there's can't put an appraisal value on it, so not involved with permits.
Proceed cautiously.
But it's still something I've mentioned before, and I'll mention again. You got old houses down there that are selling for $150,000, $200,000, $250,000. Paying their $500 permit, they aren't paying any tax.
Real similar to
It's personal property.
a personal property travel trailer that you pay a permit to park on the land that's leased from the Corps as well.
Yep. Yep.
It's down the same guideline.
And the assessor said that you can't value those. We can't value them for taxes, so.
So we don't own the water either.
Exactly. So that was kind of the discussion at the meeting.
I feel like I said.
Yeah. Just. That's it, Rob.
Yep, thank you.
Greg?
I had an extension meeting on last Thursday night. Eric was in the field. It was me and 4 women, I think it was, and they're going good. They gave us a little bit of a spiel on what they did all summer with their grillings and programs and 4-H, and took about an hour and a half. They are looking for some Boy Scouts in Houston, if you know of any, Bob, that would put a new fence around their Houston Garden Club. They have a Houston Community Garden now.
Community garden for the master gardeners.
Yeah, for the master gardeners, and they're looking for Boy Scouts or somebody that would maybe come in and help put the fence around it to keep the rabbits and the deer and shit out of it. Yes. Eagle Scout project. And then we have a Wildcat meeting tomorrow. Do you want to do something with that trail down there, and you want to put on more bark over the rest of it, or what are you thinking? I don't think it's anything we gotta worry about this year. This year, okay. I just thought I'd ask. It's getting towards the end of the trail season anyways. Something we can refresh it in the spring, maybe.
Yep.
You could promote the use of that down there. More people walk, it'll be a little more profound.
And then, well, Eric brought it up, their budget's gonna be about $600 short for next year.
proposed budget for 24. Pension. Where all the money's gonna go, I don't know. Guess they just give me an old printout out of it. They've given Carol one too, I think,
What's that?
their budget extension, did they send you their budget?
It was included in our budget.
Yep, well then, there was like 6,800 they needed extra. Something like that, they were gonna be short. So I just thought I'd bring that to our attention.
Is that the 6,000 they were gonna be short because they wanted to do the full-time FTE?
Yeah, there was something, they were gonna hire a couple of people or something.
Oh, no, they were gonna hire. The extension situation is they're gonna increase Jennifer to a full 1.0 instead of 0.75. And then they're gonna eliminate the summer intern budget line. To help offset that increase.
During the fair, you mean, you're talking?
Yeah, they always have to try to. Hire a summer intern, so. That may be where the 6,000, it doesn't sound right. I could talk to Lisa about that again. She asked me about. Where it was coming down the line, and I told her that, we were in the middle of a budget process. Making cuts because it wasn't looking pretty. And it wasn't included the extension of going to full-time and. So, can't make any promises. It's not over yet. So, it's just. Well, I'll get in contact.
Yeah, I got that to go, I got the numbers at home. I didn't bring them along, I didn't think it was too important today, so. Outside of that, I got nothing else at the present moment.
So Polly, are you still on the line? Are taxes due the 16th of October versus 15th is on a Sunday?
I'm sorry, Eric, I'm on a line here. What was the question?
So is the final tax payment date is the 16th of October or the 15th?
Correct, the 16th.
All right, yeah, because I had a couple people ask me, well, are they late if they're paid on the 16th? And I said, nah, it shouldn't be because it's on a Sunday. But it is.
Correct. Yep, you are
All right.
right.
Just one clarification on that.
Anything else?
It looks to me like the extension. Increase asked from last year to from this year to 2024 is about $7,300. So I'm not sure if that's what she's referring to.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, the difference.
But the 198, 192 is in our budget. It just doesn't include the additional FTE. So that was already really approved in proposal.
So, okay.
I don't think there's additional 6,000 or whatever dollars. I think that's what they're probably comparing.
Just a question with regard to the investigation. Is there anything lined up on that? I mean, anybody?
I got a couple calls. I have talked conversations with Bob. I got a couple of calls and emails out to people and so. No, we haven't.
Nothing set up yet. Okay.
No,
Thank you.
I did get Sam's email.
MCIT and AMC suggestion or something. Anything else from the commissioners? Public comment. We have the 507-456-4050. Can you identify yourself, please, for the record? are you there? Can you identify?
They're gone now.
Okay. And any other public comment on the screen or here? Entertain a motion to adjourn. So move. Is there a second? Second. No discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, folks, go drive.